Welcome to Biz Help for You with host Candy Messer. Entrepreneurs like to focus on the big picture, like profitability, success, and a smooth-running organization. But there always seems to be those little things like taxes, employee compensation, laws, regulations, and more. Now you can get the answers you need in one place. Join us today as we break it all down for you. Now, here's your host, Candy Messer.
Hello and welcome to Biz Help for You with Candy Messer. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed my last interview. And if you missed the episode and would like to listen to the show, links can be found on my YouTube and Facebook pages, as well as multiple favorite podcast platforms. And if you'd like to receive notifications on when my podcasts have been uploaded, please like and subscribe. Now, let's learn a little bit about my guest today. If you are not meeting your goals, overwhelmed with work, or always pressed for time, Ms. Incredible VA can help. She's a highly skilled professional and partner with clients in long-term collaborative relationships to act as their administrative operations advisor and staff. She loves interacting with people and is well-versed in strategic management, internet marketing, sales, and customer service, among other things. She enjoys helping small businesses cut through the fluff and information overload and get things checked off their to-do list while they focus on what they do best. So Nicole, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Candy. Thank you so much for having me and for the opportunity to be here today. I appreciate you and I appreciate it.
Well, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to our conversation. I know this is going to be a really fun one. But before we get into the topic that we have for today, I want you to tell our listeners a little bit more about you and how'd you become a BA and who do you serve?
Absolutely. So I have 17 years of business experience overall. I spent about 8 years in corporate, but I started off kind of just getting thrown into the deep end of the pool, I would say, as a young girl working with a solopreneur at a hedge fund. And he was kind of like, well, I'm going to manage the portfolio and you figure everything else out. And I was so scared, but it was the best experience that I ever had because I was able to be self-taught and figure everything in a small business out, which is really small businesses are all about all the time, is figuring out new solutions to problems. So it was a great experience there. And, I had all the leeway in the world to learn and figure out. And I stayed there for about 8 years. And then we grew the company from 0 to 18 people at that time. And then I decided that it was time for me to part ways just because at the time I was growing my family and things like that. But that will always hold a special place in my heart. And following that, I did something completely different. And I worked for a recycling company as a director of office operations. And I assisted in some sales and different things. Like, it was great. It was local. I love the cause, just a fun time. And then when the economic crash of 2008 happened, they were, cutting some of the positions back. Ultimately, the company did end up actually selling out to a larger company. So my position was eliminated at that time, but it was a wonderful experience. I made some great friends and I was able to help the company on multiple levels. And then I thought, well, what do I do? Like I kind of hit the ceiling with what I could really offer in terms of value. And I decided that this was something I wanted to do for myself. So I was like Googling and looking like, is this a thing? Like, do people do this? And I ended up finding AssistU, which is a very unique little university that taught how to be virtual in business. Like everything was about like to how to be operations support, like virtually. And what I love about it, number one, is that it's very heart-based. So it was kind of like, well, if you're not interested in really helping these businesses and you're just there for like a paycheck or some temp work, that's okay if you're there for temp work, like if you want to come in, do a little project and move on. But that's not what this was. The president was kind of like, well, the whole mission of AU is to really take heart-based people who care about growing these businesses and make them, the right arm virtually of someone else in whatever kind of way, whether you are the executive assistant for them, you are the marketing, you are the HR, you are the strategic support, you are just doing all the things and you're there supporting all the efforts of the business owner. Really what I do is to work for a small business with 0 to like 4 people. So it could be one person for example, who's a writer, who may never have a full staff and who will always need, one-to-one support, or someone who chooses to stay in a small business model. They don't need someone in their office full-time or even 20 hours a week. They might need someone 10 or 15 hours a month to handle certain aspects of their business. So what I do is I develop long-term relationships with my clients. I do stay with them, long-term. I've been with some clients 10 years, 8 years, these are long-term. And so I get in there, learn about their business, and kind of allow them a little freedom, like go take a vacation. I've got your business, kind of thing. So I can actually step into aspects of their business. And I've actually gotten so close with my owners that they forget like how to do things because I've been doing them for so long. So that's the relationship that I have, and I really care about them to a great extent. So it's like family.
Right. And as small business owners, we have so many hats we have to wear. It's helpful to have someone like you who could come in and just, even if it's one aspect like the marketing, helping with creating email newsletters, things like that, it's really helpful to have someone like you. So I know we appreciate having that type of help. But I know today we're not really talking about virtual assistants, but I did want you to be able to share because I want people to know about you and, kind of what you offer too. But we wanted to talk about accountability. And I would love for you to, first of all, even talk about like, how did we even meet? Because we're going to be talking about our own accountability with each other. So we're going to talk about our story.
Yeah. So we met at a conference. And it was just like about the next steps, like how do we grow our business? What are some of the challenges? I remember it was really like sort of high energy, it was a cool conference. And I think that one was in Chicago, wasn't that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we met here, and I remember one of us like raising our hands and saying, I need some accountability for some initiatives that I'm doing in my business. And I think that initial one might have been you. And I was like, I'll do it. Like, I want to help you. Like, what can we do? And we said, all right, well, let's set up a chat. Let's talk on Fridays. Let's see what we can do. And we left the conference with the to-do of like connecting. And I remember thinking like, I hope this works out. I wonder how this is going to go. And it was my first time really having an accountability buddy in that way for my business. So that was our initial meeting, right?
Right. And I remember, I think for me, that was probably one of the first conferences I'd ever really attended, other than maybe a small local one. But I actually had started my business in late 2002, opened an office in 2005, and that conference was in 2011. And I believe I was invited by someone who was the virtual assistant actually for the person presenting, and said, hey, you might want to come. And I have a friend in Chicago too. And I thought, great, I could, go to this conference that I can actually see this friend that I've had since I was 14. And as they were talking too, and they're like, how many of you really don't have somebody who really understands what it's like to be an entrepreneur? Maybe you don't have any family, you don't have any friends, you don't have any associates really that you knew. And that was me. I was like, well, my family supports me, but they don't necessarily understand that like I dream about this at night, like I think about all the things. I don't have just a 9-to-5 schedule. I work all the time, or friends, that they were happy I had a business, but they didn't understand everything. And so I think at that point, they're like, how many of you don't have, someone who really understands? And so that's where we connected and said, hey, let's become accountability partners. And you had recently started your business, I remember. So you thought it would be helpful for you as well.
Yeah, I was pretty new in my business. I thought, well, how will this go? And you're right. You're absolutely right. Like when you shift from working in an office every day to working for yourself, it can be a little bit isolating. You want to form that community. You want to, stay fresh. I mean, there's all these ideas. And I think what people don't realize is like when they hear, oh, like you're going to have your own business. That's fantastic. You have all the time in the world. Like you can go out and you can go out all day and go shopping and, whatever. And we're like, no, I work more than I ever did in my life. And I love my business. So it's keeping me up at 3:00 in the morning, all this stuff. So I think people, family and friends who've never done that have some misconceptions about what it can mean to be a business owner. So it was really refreshing to meet a friend who said, I get it, like there's a lot to do and it's wonderful and I wouldn't trade it for the world, but there's a lot to do. So just having somebody to, I think, relate on that level, it's multiple things. It's emotional, it's logistical, it's just being able to talk something through out loud sometimes. And
Right.
then all of a sudden it cements in and you're like, oh, I'm accountable to that for myself and for you, and to you. So I better do a thing, it's all these parts
Right.
of that.
Right. And I think for us too, I think it was really nice too, because of course, at first we didn't even know each other at all. So we were starting to develop a relationship just on a personal level too, to learn about each other, our families and things like that too. But what were the goals that we had in our business? What are the struggles, that we've been facing? What are the successes that we've had? And so I know from the beginning, we said, okay, send an email about like a success and a challenge, right? So we could, share kind of the joys with each other, but also like help think through maybe some of those challenges, or maybe it's just being able to express, to someone who understands, like, this is what I'm going through, and just to talk about it, not even necessarily always to have to share a solution, but really just going through and sharing what's going on. And I think that's been really helpful too.
Yeah, and there's been a tremendous evolution, from that. And then you're right. I think it'd be interesting sometimes to go back and like look at that like first email. See what's there. And because this is a time when, okay, so I just started my business. So I don't even know that I had a full client portfolio at that time. I might have had a little couple baby clients at that time. And you maybe had a teeny tiny team, but didn't have a full team at that time. We're kind of figuring out still how to delegate. Yeah, everything was just baby new at that time. And the evolution since then has been amazing. Amazing. And I remember all the phases, like probably better than my own business. I could tell you the phases that your business went through. Because it's easier to look at it from that angle. But and not only that, but personal. Because I remember like my kids were little. They were little, and your kids were fairly little. You were going to the sports. You were driving kids back and forth to activities at that time, and all kinds of stuff. So that was very interesting.
Yeah, I think I had teenagers at the time. And, since then, having, like you said, developed this relationship, we've seen kids grow. Now we both have married daughters and we are grandmas now, so being able to support each other on like the personal side of things has been great, as well as the business side of things.
Yeah, I don't know how much, I don't want to get into too much detail, but I'll just say like, I remember. So you were like soccer mom, and initially there was you went from soccer mom to, your daughter going through this huge like initiative of wanting to do this mission work abroad. And, I remember thinking, in meeting you, that your family was so well-rounded, like having so many different aspects of their life. And you're very service-based. So the whole family is like very service-based. Like you guys make time, even though you're a busy business owner, even though you have personal commitments, even though you don't wake up feeling wonderful every single day, like we all wish we could, you still make time for service commitments. I love that. I love that you guys are free thinkers and that you said yes to your child who wanted to go away and go to many different countries, maybe not the safest areas of the world, and do some mission work, and you supported that in her. So that was like a big thing. And I think, one of the things that really helped me, especially early on when I was trying to get my feet under me with my business, was like, Candy shows up to everything all the time, even if it's like you're dying when you get there, but you make it happen. Like you could have been on a flight for 20 hours. And then after that, you're like, okay, I'm at the call. I might not be my best self right now, but I showed up and we're going to get a thing done before we wrap this up. So I've always really respected that aspect of your personality, that you will show up to something no matter what that means. And that's very inspirational to me. So I thought that was some cool stuff that happened like early on. And I watched you like build your team and go from one person to multiple people and figure out like, well, how do I make this work? How do I really support this vision of having a team? and like, how do I support this vision of growing my business and then making this work for clients in a way that's like, what that you're well compensated, the client's also taken care of, and by you being well compensated, the client is taken care of, and like packages and all that stuff. So it was an entire like evolution over this time of all of these different things. And I think those are the parts that really like stick out for me.
And I think too, for me, watching you and your business from when you were starting and wondering, like, am I going to be able to make this work? Am I going to be able to support myself, my family? And should I go back? I know that at one point you're like, well, maybe I should work for this other company again. I mean, they need some help. I could be an employee again, or do I want to do that? Or maybe I want to have a side thing, and sometimes there were things that you were looking at and trying to figure out, can you make this work? And my being able to encourage you as well and saying, I know what you're doing is great. People enjoy what you offer. And what can we do to look at maybe offering something a little bit different that you can attract customers, and, really just being able to talk through things you might have been considering and saying, does this work? Like, do we think it's going to happen? You know what I mean? Like, just being able to really talk through things and figure out, like, is that something that you want to be able to pursue, or should it be tweaked a little bit? I think that's one of the things about the accountability that we have too, is really talking about ideas and seeing, like, is that a great idea? Does it need to have like a slightly different perspective? How can that be implemented, so that the business can go where you want it to go?
So I think we're really good counterparts in that you are a small business owner who doesn't do what I do, but you would be someone who could be a potential client. You know what I mean? Like, you fit into that potential client category where you could tell me honest feedback about what would work for you and what wouldn't. And at the same time, I'm a VA. So if you have logistical challenges or like other things happening in your business that aren't working, it's easy for me to identify, oh, okay, this is maybe what you can look for, you can try, because this is what I do all the time. So I love that what we do is different and so very complementary, and it just so happens that bookkeeping is something, like bookkeeping, accounting is something I just don't do at all. Like, I just don't do it. And VAs are different. So they're, a virtual assistant can be many things. The definition of virtual assistant is fast, but in the way that I work and the VAs, like the AU VAs, and the way that we work is more at a little bit higher level, and we do different things. But for me, like, bookkeeping was never part of my thing. It was more, it's more working with people, marketing, strategic management, those types of efforts. So I love that it's all very complementary in that way. That's been amazing.
Well, it definitely has been helpful. And I know someone might be listening and thinking, well, I've had accountability, I've had a business coach, or I've been in, like a membership group for a year, and we had to hold each other accountable, or we had to say that we had a goal and what we wanted to reach. And I know I had that before too. I had a business coach and I was in a mastermind. I'm actually still in a mastermind that I've been part of a certain group for many, many, many years. And that's also very helpful. But I think this is different when you have that one-on-one accountability partner that you develop a relationship over many, many years, because it's not just a short-term thing that you're in a program, and that program ends and now you don't have accountability any longer, so I would love for you to even talk about maybe if you've had an experience too in something different than what we have, and maybe how you find what's helpful, like maybe with the business coach, but then what was helpful in a different way with the relationship that we've had for so long, because I know this has been, for me, something that I really value, and I appreciate that we're going to have that call every Friday.
Yes. So I'll say that with other things, it was a program, right? So we had one goal. There was a goal in there somewhere. And the goal could have been like, well, I want to build this leg of my business, or I want to, work on my confidence or something like that. But I think that working in that way and having a coach and having, even the people that I grouped with, there was always one common goal. And the difference between that and what we did is that we came in there was an expectation of, I'm going to be there for you and you're going to be there for me. And we're going to talk about what we want to work on. But we left so much grace within that to say, our topics are not one thing. Like, you could call me and say, man, I'm struggling with like work-life balance this week because my kids are requiring XYZ, or my business is requiring XYZ, and my children are, they need me to. And I could call you and say, oh, emotional saying that, but I could call you and say like my life is falling apart and I can't say that to anybody else. You know what I mean? And I think having the comfort, I mean, there were weeks where I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to talk to Candy. Like, I just can't, like, I'm so looking forward to having that call because I needed that little lift or something. And I don't think it's so much that, I think we even always kind of have a sense of what we need to do. You know, we might have a challenge once in a while, but more often we just need to hear that we can do it, you know, or we need to say it out loud. And there's a huge value in that. So if I come to a call on Friday and I'm like, oh, I'm so tired and, you know, this week has been hell, but this is what I need to do, then I think after I get off the call, I'm like, oh, that's what I need to do, you know? Or like sometimes we get a little tough love. Like I'm like, well, this and this and this, and I feel a little whiny. And then you're like, okay, so, you know, this and this and that. And you give me like the factual, logical, this is what you need to do that, and you'll be fine kind of thing. And I like that aspect of it. So there's just been lots of grace and lots of like, we weren't pigeonholed to one thing. It was, right. What do we need? What do we need now? And it kept evolving, as it does with small businesses. It evolves. So having a friend who sort of does what you do, or having a fellow entrepreneur in a complementary space, or both, could be amazing for people, I think. But whatever form it comes in, you know, accountability and community is very, very important to success. And one of my favorite clients, friends, influencers always says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's African proverb. And he's always quoting it. And I like, it's burned into my brain now. And I really do like believe this. If you want to go far, go together. So I think we've been able to be both community and accountability. And that's been amazing.
Right. And when we have a project that, you know, maybe it's a big project and it seems overwhelming, you know, but we can talk about the steps that we're making. And, you know, you can encourage, especially when there are times that, like you said, we're tired, there's so much on our plate, something comes up that's unexpected, but then you can say to me, or I can say to you, you know, well, that's okay. Take, you know, today off or something in terms of that, but get back to it, right? Don't just keep putting it to the side thinking like, I'll get to it someday, right? It's like, well, no, at some point you do need to at least focus on getting something done, making a step forward so you can continue having, you know, that progress, right? That's what we want to see is progress. But at the same time, it's not like in a program where we have to finish something by a certain date, you know, like I've been in things too, where you're on a call and then they're like, here's your assignment and this needs to be done by like such and such a date. And that's good too, in certain situations where you have to be held accountable to make sure that you're getting an assignment done or things like that too. But at the same time, we understand life happens and this is a long-term thing. We're not like 6-month program, 1-year program. We have to finish XYZ, you know, by the end. And so I think that's been good for us as well, just being able to have where we know things are going to happen and we can support each other when those things happen. And we may have planned to talk about business and then maybe something personal came up and then we can encourage each other on that level as well.
Yeah, I think so. And I remember you were in that like accelerator thing. Well,
I was in the 10,000 small business program.
First of all, I was super proud of you when you became a part of that. And like, I mean, I remember you having to even go through like a process to even like be able to participate in that. It wasn't like you just go sign up. I mean, you had to qualify and things like that.
Right. So be interviewed, that was a really all
cool
of that.
Thing. And I remember I was really proud of that effort. And then when you did get in there, it was like guns blazing. Like you had so many things to do, you know, so many parts of like, I have to build these packages and I have to, you know, be accountable. And I remember you really committed to that and doing an amazing job, but also just being so tired and some days feeling like, I don't know how this is all going to happen or whatever, but you did make it happen. And we did talk about it. It was really cool to hear about that journey and to be the person who had the opportunity to be accountable, to helping hold the space for you to like just share like what was happening for you in those times, because you really had so much going and so much expectation laid on you at that time.
Yeah, that one was, I remember one of the interview questions that they had about that too was, they said, oh, well, we know your industry and this is during your busiest time of the year. So like, how do we know that you're actually going to commit and do, the things that you're supposed to be doing in here? And I remember saying, like, when I commit to something, I do it. It doesn't matter, like what my schedule is like, I'm going to make sure that I accomplish it. And so I did. I was very tired when we had twice a month, we had a full day meeting, and then you had quote unquote homework, that you had to do. And in the long run, you were coming up with a growth plan for your business, right? And how you're going to implement it. And, it's kind of like a business plan. And it talked about all kinds of things in your business, whether it was like the people that are working for you or being a bankable business. So if you need to have a loan at some point, that a bank is going to say yes. There was like all kinds of things that we had to do. And we had a huge project that we had to turn in at the end. And so, yes, it felt overwhelming. And I remember talking with you as I was going through things, and I would ask questions too, like, what do you think about this in terms of this aspect of it, and get feedback and things like that too. So I think that was really helpful as well, because it was, for me during that time, a very exhausting time, but I knew that it could impact my business.
Yeah. And sometimes, I think we're at that exhaustion level where either A, we've looked at it too many times and we're no longer objective, or B, we just have 100 things. And when you're in that space, you're fully capable and awesome professional, but you need another set of eyes on a thing. And if you don't have a partner, it's really nice to have a buddy that you can turn to and say, like, can you check me? I think I've been up 24 hours now and I don't know if I'm really objective anymore. Can you, take a look and make sure that this is okay to go out and be publicized?
Right.
So that's like a big thing, that's like a big deal, because especially if you're in development of something that you want to send out and you are about to release something that is going to make an impact on your business. It's really nice to be able to run that by someone. So that's been kind of cool.
And making sure it sounds the way you want it to, right? Because a lot of times things come across differently. The way our perspective is when we're writing something versus how it's received on the other end. So I know there's been times like you'll say, what do you think about this? And, I'll read it, or you'll read it to me and I'll give you my feedback, and vice versa. I might say something to you like, this is what I was thinking. This is something that I want to send out or I want to offer, and what do you think about this? So I think that's been really helpful. Like I said, having come from a different perspective, and does it say what we want it to say?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it helps. I think we help each other like reinforce what we really want our brands to be and our services sometimes, because, that can be a little challenging. Like if you're thinking through something and then it's good. It's just, good to run that past. Like what I'm thinking, is this shiny ball syndrome? Is this really something that can be complementary? What are your thoughts? And we're always very transparent. I mean, I can talk to you, you can talk to me. We don't get offended about anything. It's just a very free flow of conversation where, we respect each other's brutal honesty sometimes, and then it's not always like that either. I mean, sometimes it's just like we need a little bit of love and a little bit of tenderness, and we do provide that for each other. And I love that too. Like you can just tell when someone is feeling tender or vulnerable, and you can hold that little space and offer some words of comfort and wisdom in that time for them. So I appreciate like that we've done that for each other. And I remember another thing that you went through. So I consider that business like journey that you went through with the 10,000. I'm sorry, I never remember.
10,000 small business program.
10,000 small business. Okay. But I remember that's a huge deal. And you did follow through all the way to the end and beyond. And it did create a big impact in your business for the better. And a lot came out of that. So, I mean, I think that kind of took you up to the next notch going through that whole experience. That was really cool. And then at the same time, though, personally, Rebecca's off and running to all these countries, and the family is just graduating and moving on, and a lot of things were happening where it was, and so everybody was off doing their own thing, making it difficult to harness your personal life, because
Mm-hmm.
in order to be with your family, you literally had to travel, had to
Mm-hmm.
either across the country or out of the country or whatever. And the myth, finding out grandbabies come in. And I think about that, like, that is not easy. It is not easy to emotionally, mentally sustain, like, hey, everyone's gone. Like, all the people in my family are in different parts of the country right now, or different parts of the world. And especially as a small business owner, I think we're deep feelers. I
Mm-hmm.
think that just as default, most of us are deep feelers, because if you're going to be a business owner, you really have to be in tune to what you're good at and what you're not, and also like how you feel, because that's the only way that you're going to come across authentically, and you're really going to have a good business. So we're vulnerable people, we're deep feeling people. We have so much going on all the time, and to have like the situations that are difficult with family too, where I've got to fly across the country to help my child with something. I've got to fly across the world to help my child or help my grandchild with something. Hey, we're having a baby shower over in, where was the where was she?
Ecuador.
Ecuador. Thank you. Ecuador. So she's in Ecuador. I'm flying to Ecuador next week. I'm just gonna do a little work on the plane on the way or something like that. Like I think, you are in the space of growing your business to the next level in the midst of that wild journey in personal
Right.
life too. And you did it all. You did it all. So that to me was very inspiring. I was like, if you can go to Ecuador, I think I can get to a game and like show up for my daughter's party, or throw a baby shower or whatever that's right here in my own backyard, because we
Mm-hmm.
were kind of going through some things at similar times and stuff like that. So I think that was really inspiring, and it was really like, you kind of always just like one foot in front of the other, even if you have to get a thing done. And even during the emotionally challenging times, I think just finding ways, positive outlets,
Right.
ways you can be of service, ways you can build other community, is something that you did a very good job with. Like, I don't even think I said this to you, because I would never say this to you at that time, but I remember thinking, like, how is she doing this? How are you holding up? And I remember you talking about, like, church friends at church and different things, and people you were having meals with and doing things. And I thought, awesome. You know what I mean? Like, how awesome is Candy that she's finding these other ways of having community, taking lemons and making lemonade out of a time that was a little hard. Never
Mm-hmm.
said, by the way, I don't even think you ever said, like, this is hard, not having my family. Never voiced it. But we know.
Right.
That's not going to be easy for any person, but never, but just you were a trooper through all of that. So I really
Mm-hmm.
respect that. And I'm sorry, I hope I'm not like putting you on blast here, but I just think those are a couple of places where in your life and in your work, they deem respect, and they're very admirable. And at times I felt that I could be there for you.
Well, some people may be listening to this too and not realizing that we have really only seen each other after the one time we met in person in Chicago at that conference, probably 3 times in the 11 years, that we have been friends.
Yeah.
So I would say maybe just tell the listeners like why it is not an issue being separated, and how you could still build accountability even if you don't see each other face to face.
Yeah, I think we just talk like we're sitting in the same room having a coffee. We talk on the phone. It's not always camera, and we're just sharing. I think we have great communication. So first of all, we have our little emails that we share, just kind of saying what's going on for us. And we always say, "Hey, how you doing? Good morning. Like, how you doing?" And then we always
Mm-hmm.
know that like it's the opening of the conversation, and we just share openly, like as if it's a friend sitting in the room, and we don't think about it too much. And then if there are opportunities that we can meet up in person, that's fabulous. But it's definitely not necessary. I mean, I think just doing
Mm-hmm.
what we're doing now, just having open conversation. I can draw something on my chalkboard wall. I could send you something to read. You could send me something to read via email and review via Google Drive. I mean, we have a connected world right now. So
Right.
bar filing in your filing cabinet, hard copies of legal documents, everything else can be done virtually, literally
Right.
everything else. I don't think that's ever been a problem for either of us. So I think And like even now with these Zoom calls and everything, like this is not something that we did. I mean, we've always had this, but pre-COVID, I don't even think we were doing, it wasn't even a lot with camera. And now
Right.
there's a million platforms that are out there that I can even like sit with you face to face like that. So I think that's kind of cool too.
I just think it's important for people to realize, yes, you may have an ability to meet with someone who's local, but don't let that hold you back. If you don't have someone that's close by, you may be able to connect with someone and build that relationship long distance, because it does work.
Yeah. So first of all, look for some networking opportunities, and they don't have to be expensive or far. Like they could be like virtual. It could be like there's a group, isn't it like Meetup or something, where they have different types of groups of people that you can look for that do what you do. So like they might be industry specific. LinkedIn is a great place to find, just to start off, like looking for a couple of groups that like have something interesting you need. And it doesn't always have to be complementary to what you do. You could look for something different than what you do. Like, for example, if I wanted to meet more business owners that I could help, I might go to a networking event for small businesses in general and not for virtual assistants. But if I wanted to
Right.
meet more virtual assistants, I would specifically look for virtual assistant. And then that just helps you meet people, or like find someone that's opposite you. So don't be held into a box of like, oh, I have to find people who do what I do too. Like look at different types of people, meet different types of people who do different things, and find them in the places where like if you have a hobby, or if you like to go to church, meet people that are in church, or meet people who play a sport or something like that, like that have some common interest, and you can start to build from there. So just I guess what I'm saying is like, I would tell people stay open-minded and try different things. And part of what my strength and my I think edge for me has always been is doing that, doing different things and meeting different people and leaving myself open to new ideas in whatever way that comes along.
Well, I think this has been helpful. I think it's really good for people to hear, that being accountable definitely does make an impact on your business. And like you said earlier, when I think we first started talking, I had maybe a couple people on the team. As of today, I now have 11. My business has just continued to grow over the years. And I know it's because, having accountability and saying I'm going to do something and make a difference, it allows me to employ other people and make a difference in their lives too. So it's been a major impact on my business, and I know it's helped you as well. So finding that buddy, that you can have that accountability with long-term, build that relationship, I think is really important.
But let's just say we have had fun too. Lots of
Yes, we
fun.
have.
So we've been telling you guys about accountability and all this stuff because that's why we're here. But really, we've also had a ton of fun, which is good for your morale and good for everything overall to have fun. We've met up in person, and that was really awesome too, because that gave us reasons to like travel and about a couple different things and meet some other people as a result of that and stuff like that, and finally get the opportunity to meet our. So we have had a ton of fun, and there is something to be said for that too. So
exactly. Well, this has been a fun conversation, Nicole. I know it's different than many of the interviews that I do, but I thought, when we were talking on the phone on one of our accountability calls too, that just came up like, hey, we should talk about this on my podcast because it could really help other people as well. So I really do appreciate your taking the time out of your day to have this conversation with me, record it, and share it with those who listen.
absolutely. You're welcome. I mean, we've been talking every Friday, so I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you, to hang out. This is wonderful to remind myself of all the reasons why I'm grateful to do what I do, to have you in my life, and to just, enjoy our friendship and our partnership.
Perfect. Well, I know we didn't really talk a lot about the virtual assistant and what you do, but I always ask someone if they have an offer they'd like to share. So I would love for you to still have something you would like to share with the listeners if they're interested.
Sure. So along the lines of accountability, if you guys are struggling with figuring out what you need and saying to yourself, like, do I need a VA, or do I need something else? Or how would I make this work? Or you're interested in having somebody work with you virtually that's not going to be in your office space, but you really don't know what that's going to look like or something like that. I'm always happy to have a consult, a 15 or 20 minute chat about that. and help guide you through what to do to figure that out. Or if you've already sort of been figuring that out and you know what you need, I could help you figure out the resource for it. So just reach out to me via email. You can reach me at msincredibleva@gmail.com, or you can find me at msincredibleva.com as well, my website.
Perfect. Well, thanks again, Nicole. I enjoyed our conversation as always. It's always a pleasure, speaking with you. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you too, Candy.
All right. And to the listener, I want to thank you for tuning in. I hope you found this discussion interesting and you enjoyed the topic of the impact of accountability on our businesses. I encourage you to find an accountability partner and watch the impact that it has on your business. And if you have any additional questions or comments, be sure to reach out to Nicole at the links that she shared or send me a message at media@abandp.com. I hope you can join me for my next interview. And remember, you can connect with me on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And my website is abandp.com. You can also find my show, Biz Help for You, posted on several favorite podcast platforms, including iTunes, Google, TuneIn, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. And would you please share my show with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? I'd really appreciate your support. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.